Hey y'all, this is Chris with Rockin Farm, trying to get a little bit more content out to you. What I want to show you today is how I set up my chicken brooder. Just about everybody else that's out there has chicken brooders and they all set them up different ways. I just wanted to show you how I set it up. There's a couple of things that I think make mine kind of unique, and I really like a few of the ideas that I have, so hopefully it'll help some of y'all out. We've used this brooder system 3 times now to brood chicken chicks and also guinea keats. So we know it works well. It's proven. Basically what we do is we grow them out in this brooder until they just kind of get too big for it. I like to get birds out on grass and get them outside as soon as I can. So once they get a little bit too big for this and they're kind of getting a little crowded, they're dirtying up the bedding that I put down too quickly, then it's just time for them to move on outside. And then I have a grow out pen that I'll show y'all in another video. And we can kind of move that one around a little bit so we can keep them on some fresh grass where they can do some scratching and some pecking. Like I said, that's another video. Today we're just looking at the brooder and my brooder setup. So I've got my son Jose running the camera today. He is going to help me out and make sure that we get all the appropriate shots. So Jose, you got 2 jobs. Okay. Job number 1, show people what I'm doing. Job number 2, keep my butt crack off of YouTube.
Alright.
You got it?
Yes, sir.
Alright. So, the first thing I want to show you is found object. So this this steel tub, this stock tank, this was on the property when we moved here. I don't have any major livestock or big livestock right now. So this was a found object. It works good. It's got good depth to it. It's a good size. I did 27 chicks in this last year and got them to a size where I could move them outside. So it's just kind of good overall, and the best part is I didn't have to pay for it. So if you were to try and actually do some sort of a thing this size, you'd either have to do a lot of building or you'd have to pay a lot of money. I found it. Good for me. So the first thing I do with my chicken brooder setup is, everybody knows what a chick waterer looks like. This is the size I start them out on. We do the little marbles in the bottom sometimes if the chicks are real little, or if they're acting like, you know, they're just prone to drowning themselves. Once they start drinking a lot of water, we have a 1-gallon chicken waterer, and we'll bump them up to that. I've tried all different kinds of feeders. This one works well for me, the good old tray feeder. I like it because they can all get in here and feed and not be crowding and stepping on each other and squishing each other. I've also got the feeder that's about like this, where they just feed around and it's only got like 5 or 6 holes. It seems like they just get too competitive. That one worked really good for the guinea keats because I only had like, I think the first time I brooded guinea keats, I had like 6. So that worked out fine. But when I'm doing, you know, 15, 20, 25 chicks, I like the long one. And if you run it right down the middle, they still have plenty of room to move around. So the first thing I do when I'm setting up my brooding station is I input something that I think is fairly unique. I've seen similar stuff to this, and I may have even seen this some places, but it's basically just a paint tray. And I had to go get a new one this year because my old one was getting too rusty. And it's a 5-gallon bucket paint screener. So this is the first thing that goes down into my chicken brooding setup. And I'll show you why I have it and explain it in just a second. So once I get that sucker down in there, we're pretty much talking about bedding after that. I like the good old pine shavings. I pick mine up at Tractor Supply because it's just the best place for me to get them. I put this in my chicken nesting boxes too. It seems to work really well. It's good and absorbent. It's good and fluffy. So once I get a good amount of it in like the nesting boxes, I can just kind of fluff it up for them every day. And they seem to really like it. And it seems to give me pretty good clean eggs. So this is what I use in my nesting boxes, and it's also what I use in my my brooding setup. So I'll dump some of this in here, and we'll start getting set up. They packed this stuff in here good, man. Vacuum seal space bags ain't got nothing on pine bedding from Tractor Supply. I like to get a good nice layer in here. When the chicks are really little, I can leave this in here for a week. Once they get to be about 3 weeks old, I have to change it out about every 4 days. Once they get to be about 5 weeks old, I change it out every couple of days. But I don't mind because it does really good in my compost piles. So get a bunch dumped in there, and then we'll just get it spread around. So I get my tray down in there. The tray's actually sitting on the ground, and then I get enough chips in around, or the wood shavings in around it, that they have kind of just a natural level that they can walk right onto here. If a little bit get down in it, it really doesn't matter. And I'm sure y'all are getting a nice echo as I'm sitting here talking into this big steel drum, but we'll see what we can do about sound quality. So pine bedding, no secret. Using a trough, no secret. But what the heck is the paint pan for? So one of the things that I hate about brooders is that the very first time I ever put chicks in a brooder, you put their waterer in there, and let's say you do something like you put a nice big chunk of 2x6 or something and you set it up on the 2x6, and for the most part not too much junk is getting in here. But once they get a little bit bigger and they start kind of scratching around, they fill the trough up with pine shavings, which are very absorbent. So they sit there and soak up water all day long, and the chicks have a hard time getting to the water. On top of that, because of the wicking action, all of the bedding around it gets absolutely soaked. You go to clean it out and you find out that, 3/4 of the way up the bedding is all wet pine shavings. So I came up with this because if I put my waters on this, the chicks can get up and walk onto this graded surface. They don't have any trouble with it whatsoever, even when they're day olds. They get up onto this graded surface and they can make all the mess that they want, and any water or poo just goes down into that paint tray. So then I can pick that out of there and clean that out every single day. I can just dump wet pine shavings out, hose it out and clean out the poo, put it back in there, put the water back on top of it, and then I'll come in here and all of this pine shaving here will still be dry. I won't have half to 3/4 of this thing all wet pine shavings from their water. So it has worked really, really well for me. I've never had any problems with it. That's not to say I'm not ever going to have any problems with it, but I figure if it ain't broke, don't fix it, so I'm going to stick with it. So it is just a regular old paint tray with a 5-gallon bucket paint screener. The 1-gallon water still fits on top of this nice. It keeps all the wood chips out of the water, and it keeps all the water in the paint tray. No more mess. So they can still get around behind here. They can still move around just fine, and it helps really keep the bin clean. Feeder, I'll usually just adjust the feeder in here to where we've got a nice area over here under the light where they can hang out and not have the feeder in the way. They've got lots of room to roam on both sides, and they can feed well. One of the things I've actually thought about doing is seeing if I can find a feeder that's maybe, 2/3 the size. I would like a little bit shorter feeder, but I don't want to go with the real small ones. So I'm trying to find that feeder that's just really gives me that happy place where everybody can get in and feed and not have to worry about stepping on each other, but it's also not taking up such a long run in the brooder. It doesn't matter for the first while. For the first long while, it really doesn't matter. And then once they get a little bit bigger and I bump up to that 1-gallon water, at that time I will usually bump up to a bigger round feeder as well that I can just kind of set in this general area, and it takes up a lot less room. But then they obviously have to be more competitive for the food, but they're also bigger, so I'm not worried about them stepping on each other as much. The other part of my little brooder is my little homemade lid for my brooder. So just in case the laundry room gets left open, I don't got to worry about kitty cats getting in here and eating chicks. And then also, when the chicks get a little bit bigger and they start getting a little flighty, I don't have to worry about them flying out. So, other part to the brooder here is my little homemade lid. And I don't know if y'all could see, but chicken wire, wood frame. I've got my light in here, and the cage is still down here so that if chicks do get a little bit flighty, they don't fly directly up into the bulb. This metal gets warm, but it's so thin that it never gets hot. So you don't really have to worry about that. I tested it out for a long time. I kind of set it out like on an area of the porch where if it got hot enough to like catch the wood on fire, it wasn't going to burn down my house. And I left it running for, gosh, 48 hours straight or something like that. And I mean, the wood never scorched. The metal, I mean, I could come out here and put my hand on the metal and it would be slightly warm to the touch. Up here would be nothing. So just in this metal right around the light would get slightly warm to the touch. Obviously the metal section around the light potentially gets a little bit warmer, but I didn't want to cut that out because as they get bigger, if I want to start raising the light up, I didn't want a big hole in there. So this is our setup for our lid. Keeps all the birds down in there. Keeps kitty cats out just in case. And then obviously, just plug the old girl in. And that is my basic chick brooding setup. Like I said, we've done 3 rounds of birds, both chicks and keats, and it has worked really, really well for us so far. So if you've got any questions, if you've got any comments, if you see any ways that possibly I could improve upon it slightly, although, like I said, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. This works really well for us. I hope y'all like the idea of how it captures the water when we actually get chicks in here in a couple of weeks. Because I've got my order coming from McMurray Hatchery sometime the week of February 17th. So y'all will be going to the post office with me when I get that call saying, Mr. Leahy, if you'd like to come get your chicks, they're here. Y'all be going to the post office with me. We'll do a little unboxing and look at some cute baby chicks. But then as a couple of days go on, I'll start showing you how this setup stays relatively clean and you don't have a whole lot of mess. The one other thing that I have done with that, if you want to pan down into the box here, the one thing I have done with their feeder in the past is I'll take a piece of like fence slat, 6-inch fence slat, and I'll lay that in there and then set the feeder down on top of it because it gives them a little more room to stand around the edge up out of the pine shavings, and it does help keep pine shavings out of it. So I can't find my piece that I had last year, so I'm gonna have to find me a good cedar 6-inch wide fence picket, cut me a new section of that. I'll throw that in there. But as we continue to have some updates with these chicks and as this system starts to work, I'll kind of be able to show you better how it works. But hopefully y'all like that paint tray idea if you've never seen it before, and you know, maybe you can give it a go in your chick brooder with your chicks that you'll be getting here in the next few weeks. So again, any questions, any comments, drop them on down in the comment section. I love sharing stuff with you, and I love all of the support that y'all are giving. So until I see y'all again, this has been Chris and
Jose Leahy
with Rockin' Farm, and be happy and live healthy.